and welcome to The Piping Show. I'm your host this week, Andrew Bova, coming to you from the Blue Room at the National Piping Centre. This week, I'm very pleased to be joined by my friend and colleague, Margaret Dunn. Margaret Dunn has a number of accolades under her belt, including winning the World Pipe Band Championships in Grade 1 in 2000 with Shots and Dyke Head Caledonia Pipe Band. She's also won a silver medal at the Northern Meeting in 2007, playing the bicker, and was the first woman to ever win the A-grade light music competitions. Those were the Strathspey and Reel at the Argyllshire Gathering in 2003, and the March at the Argyllshire Gathering in 2007. If you enjoy this content, we would very much appreciate it if you like and subscribe to our channel. And also, please feel free to share these videos on your social media account. Now over to Helen Urquhart, who will bring us today's news.
On Saturday the 12th of November, the Competition League for Amateur Solo Pipers' most recent live online contest took place. Thanks to all the staff, volunteers and competitors for taking part. The results for this event will be live on the clasp Facebook page on Thursday the 8th of December at 5 p.m. UK time. Also on Saturday, the inaugural Sunbelt Invitational Piping Contest took place in Florida. The overall winner of that event was Callum Beaumont. The Peeber Society have announced the date for their prestigious Archie Kenneth Quaich Amateur Peeber Contest. It will take place on Saturday the 25th of February 2023. You can find out more about this event and eligibility to take part at www.bagpipe.news. It was announced on Friday that the 2023 European Pipe Band Championships Piping Inverness has been cancelled. You can find out more about this at www.rspba.org. And finally, voting for this year's Scots Trad Music Awards closes on Sunday the 20th of November. You can vote now over at www.projects.handsupfortrad.scot. If you have your very own Chanter MacDuck and would like to be featured in upcoming episodes of the show, please email your photos or videos to marketing@thepipingcentre.co.uk.
2 weeks ago, Willie McCallum very impressively broke his own title, winning a 9th Glenfiddich Solo Piping Championship, and won the MSR competition for a record 11th time, and it was his 3rd time in a row winning that competition. Looking at the tunes he played, I noticed his march was The Crags of Stirling, and I thought maybe today we could just have a chat about the composer of The Crags of Stirling, who was Hugh Makai. Hugh was born in 1801 in the Ray country, which is in the far north of Scotland. In 1830, he joined the 71st Highlanders as a piper and would go on to be the pipe major of the 71st Highlanders from 1836 to 1851. In 1852, he would move to Stirling, where he joined the Stirlingshire Militia and would be a member of that organization until his death in 1864. Hugh's best known as a great composer of marches, and alongside composers like Angus Mackay, developed the 2/4 march from the sort of quick step of the early to mid 1800s into the competition style 2/4 march that we know today. We can see the influence of Hugh Mackay's life on the titles of his tunes. His time in Stirling was clearly important to him, with tunes such as The Crags of Stirling, the Stirlingshire Militia, and Angus Campbell's Farewell to Stirling. And similarly, his time in the 71st Highlanders is remembered with his tune, the 71st Highlanders Quickstep. He, of course, also wrote the prolific 6-parted 2/4 march, Donald Cameron, still a popular favorite among pipe bands and solo pipers. And a tune that is less common now than it was maybe 20 years ago, Charles Edward Hope Vere. These tunes that were written over 158 years ago are still an integral part of our competition repertoire. And I sometimes wonder what tunes composed today will still be popular in 158 years' time. Margaret, thanks for being here. Very much looking forward to actually getting a chat where we're not just running past each other in the corridor here. I thought maybe to start, it would be interesting for people and for myself to know, how did you actually get into piping?
Well, I started in the local band, Cullen Pipe Band. My father was then the pipe major and still is. And yeah, so there wasn't really a question asked. It was more, right, you're 9, so you're joining the band. So we went up and just had some weekly tuition with one of the more senior band members and just kind of took off from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How sort of early did you know, because you did the degree at the RCS, or the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, as it was then known. How early on did you know you wanted to pursue a career in music?
I think from when I was in primary 1, when the question was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say, well, either a policewoman or a music teacher. So, yeah.
Two very different career paths there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as somebody who moved here from abroad, what was it like moving to Scotland from Ireland? Was that a big change, or was it quite a comfortable change? Had you spent much time in Glasgow before you moved here to do your degree?
No, I hadn't spent much time. It was a very big change. I was only 17 and I didn't know anybody here, and I moved over and moved into a bedsit, and the fridge in my room wasn't working, so I used to put my food in this communal fridge, and then I would go back to get it and it was gone, and I couldn't quite understand, where's my food going? I was so naive, I didn't realize someone was actually stealing my food. So yeah, I didn't stay there that long, and I moved in with Willie Morrison and his wife Patricia and daughter Lisa. So I lived with them for 2-3 years, and that was great. And myself and Lisa became good friends and still are good friends. We used to go around the games together and yeah, have a good time.
Yeah. With the piping centre, am I correct in saying that your first job here was actually working in the shop?
My first job was actually evening class instructor, and then I started working in the shop when I was still a student, and when I graduated I just went full time and gradually began to teach more. Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened.
It's wild how many people who work here either started doing evening classes or working in the shop.
Yeah.
That seems to be the pathway. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, your job here has grown arms and legs, and you're definitely one of the busiest members of staff that we have. So you're involved with the clasp, the Competition League for Amateur Solo Pipers. Were you involved with the sort of genesis of that, or did you come on board later? Can you maybe tell the viewers a wee bit about sort of the history of the clasp and your involvement with it?
Yeah, so I was involved really from the start, and it was Roddy McLeod, who was the director at the time. He sort of came up with this idea. He saw an opportunity, I suppose, for to give amateur solo pipers a platform, adult amateur pipers. So I think he knew quite a few pipers who maybe just didn't have a platform. They maybe didn't want to go professional, or maybe they didn't feel maybe quite at that level. So yeah, so it was something he approached me about to run, and I took it on, and I'm still here. They're stuck with me.
Oh, I don't think anybody in the class would ever say they're stuck with you. That program seems to have, exploded, especially within the last few years. I'm curious, how did you find the shift from in-person competitions pre-pandemic to then moving into online competitions? Was that quite an easy transition, or did you find that a struggle? And sort of what kind of feedback did you get from the competitors about that?
I think that the longer it went on, that's the online competitions, we tweaked and we sort of made adjustments as we learned and as we went along. And we've currently got to a format that I believe gives the competitor the best case scenario if you are competing remotely. So you have to do it live, and it will be captured on a video and then sent in for the judges to assess. So it's live and it's giving the judge a visual, you know, of the player as well. So I think that's probably, I think the best case scenario you can maybe get out of running a competition online. But whenever the pandemic hit, we actually had a clasp competition scheduled for the end of March 2020. I think it was the 28th of March. So obviously lockdown in the UK was the 23rd of March. So, but maybe a week or two before that, it was starting to look less likely that this competition was going to run. So I sent an email out to the members who had entered, and I said, look, this is likely not to run. Would you do an online competition in place of it? And they were all keen to give it a go. So we didn't cancel. We kept going, and I'm glad we made that decision, because the pandemic obviously went on much, much longer than anybody could have ever imagined.
I remember being here in the office like the week before everything sort of locked down, and I was like, we'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
2 years later.
Yes, absolutely.
How many members are there in the clasp now? I know I'm hitting you with a sort of data question here, but...
No, I can tell you. There's about 160 globally, yeah.
And, you know, we're moving out of the pandemic and kind of leaving that behind. I'm curious how much, because there's quite a global interaction with the clasp now, with players from all over the world taking part. How much of a plan is there to continue with online competitions in addition to in-person competitions?
Yeah, well, I suppose this year was the first year that we tried to keep the online thing going when there was options, obviously, for in-person, you know, the Highland Games, and people were getting back out competing in person. So what I thought might be a good way to structure the year was to put, you know, one on January, February time, and then one in May before the competitions, you know, just to get another live performance before maybe hitting the high season of solo piping, and then leaving the summer sort of free to allow people to do their in-person competitions. And then we had one just there on Saturday in November. So that's kind of how I structured it for those reasons. And I think 3 is probably quite a good number, and we will have an overall league winner, online league winner, as well as the general league that combines both.
Oh, very good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great that you'll have the 2 separate for the people who aren't able to come and compete
and we will
in person.
offer the same next year, and, you know, hopefully just maybe have some prizes and stuff, just to just to keep everyone engaged and interested in also competing online, because I think it's a global platform really that you wouldn't get if you held an in-person, because not everybody would be able to, you know, get to that place or make the trip.
Yeah, well, I certainly have a number of students in mainland Europe that I teach via Skype who, you know, participate in the clasp and really enjoy it. And it's been a great way for them to continue to be involved with competition, and actually, in many ways, be more involved with competition, which is quite a positive thing that's come out of the pandemic, for them to have that kind of access.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, you're quite busy, and thinking about the pandemic, you started a program, Bite-Sized Bagpipes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so that was John Mulhern and Helen Urquhart's idea, and they approached me to ask me if I would put it together and deliver it from home, because it was, I think we'd just come out of December 2020, and there was another wave, so kids were again home from school, being homeschooled, and we decided just to put this quite easy to follow short videos, just they're free to access, and you can watch them as many times as you need to. And it's very easy. Just started with one hand, just the top hand, so quite early on in the first lesson you can get a tune, deck the halls, so they can kind of get engaged quite quickly. It's not too difficult to manage that once you have the top hand scale. And then, you know, we worked up to just moving around the chanter, using Star Wars, so quite a familiar tune for kids, I'm sure. And
Very familiar to me, yep.
and then doing, just introducing the grace notes and the strikes. And the final lesson then was Auld Lang Syne, so just putting everything together. And we also included some PDFs which were sort of extra challenges for kids, but it varied from like how to draw treble clef to designing your own tartan to making up a poem to, you know, decoding, you know, reading the music. Yeah, so it was very varied, but or naming the parts of the bagpipes. So it was kind of a fun way maybe to get them reading music and learning some extra stuff on the side.
That's a great resource to have put together. I mean, just in general, right? For kids or even, you know, young adults or older adults who are wanting to learn, to have that extra resource, but especially during the pandemic, you know, when I think people were maybe at a loose end quite a bit.
Yeah, it had been going on for a little bit at that time, so yeah. And I think it, you know, it can be quite a good resource as well if you're a teacher. And for my students, you know, who are learning, I always say, okay, this is what we've done. Just go to this clip on the bite size. It's a short video, just if you get stuck, just have a look at it. And it, you know, it's a little mini lesson between the actual lesson, so it can just keep people on track, especially when they're starting off.
And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, these videos are going to start to be uploaded to this YouTube channel this week.
That's right.
Is that correct?
So this week they are going up, so you'll be able to access that. Yeah.
Very good. So watch this space. And I'm aware of time. I know you have a lesson coming up here. So I think the last thing I would ask you is, for people who are interested in the clasp, where might they go in order to find out more about participating with the clasp?
So the clasp is a website. It's theclasp.co.uk, or they can email theclasp@thepipingcentre.co.uk. And yeah, so basically there's a sign up button on the homepage where you can become a member, and the membership is currently reset for 2023, so you can join anytime from now. You can join any time in the year, but now you would get a full year for 2023 membership, and that's £40. But it does get a little bit less as the year goes on, and the membership, because there's obviously less competitions, you know, depending on the time of year you join. So yeah, so there's quite a lot of information as well on the website about grading and the membership rules, and we have a frequently F&A as well page, so that can be quite helpful as well.
Very good. Well, there you go, folks. You can go and check out all that information about the clasp. Margaret, thank you very much. Like I said, it's nice to actually sit and have a chat where we're not ships passing in the night.
Absolutely.
Really, really glad to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.